This day, this make my blood scream, man. So wonderful, thank you. So what I suggest is that I think if building intentional, conscious communities,
you're welcome,
is a goal. I think we are now sitting, Rutendo, myself, and my wife are sitting here in an engagement with an experiment, the first one that was formally launched post the Second World War, at a moment when the general consensus was, how do we avoid catastrophe on such a grand scale? And how do we build beyond community? So what is the ideal community? And what are the ideals of a community? What are the principles that underpin them? And I think the consensus amongst all of us here is that if we don't locate it on a foundation of indigenous knowledge, of the principles of reciprocity, of humility, of understanding our connection, not just with human beings, but our definition of Ubuntu being everything that exists, we will continue to repeat the cycle. So maybe I turn back to you, Rutendo, and see whether Martin can talk to us about some of the lessons after close to 50 years of trying to build intentional, conscious communities. What is the outcomes that they have achieved or analyzed? So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Jay, and we apologize to everybody for the hecklers, and it looks like we've got some greater community joining us and wishing to make themselves heard, so we apologize. And the messages that are written in the chat, that's definitely not Mudahi and Lucy who has written that, so please ignore that. Martin, I do see that you are in. Would you just like to give us a bit of a taste to the greater community about Auroville and how conscious community has been built over the past years?
Hi everyone, and I'm Martin. I'm born in South Africa, and I'm living in Auroville since 2007. But my journey with community started much prior to that, where I visited and lived in communities, searching for communities. And 6 years ago, I started to study Auroville as a blueprint that we could duplicate, firstly around India and then around the world. And what I'll do is, I think Jay said, thank you so much, everyone, for this incredible gathering and the full moon. Thank you, the full moon. Jay said about 10 minutes. I'll just tell you, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Auroville, but I'll share my screen very, very briefly. Okay, I don't think I've got permission. Maybe if you could give me permission to share screen, and I'll do a very, very brief intro to Auroville. Okay, it shares screen. Right. So can everyone see this aerial view of the exact midpoint of Auroville? Is it visible?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so this is the midpoint. It's called the Park of Unity, and the overarching goal of Auroville. And what I found very important, because 80% of communities when we did our research failed, is to have a goal, a common goal. And I don't think you could have anything more beautiful than human unity. India's had this idea for many thousands of years, and Africa's had this too. In India, they say world is a family, and we have ideas of Ubuntu, Pan-Africa, and this is the center point, and this is the actually a meditation hall. There's no religion there. It's basically just a silent room where anyone can go, and it's surrounded by 12 gardens that are dedicated to 12 principles of humanity. So this is the midpoint. I think Jay and everyone will be going there tomorrow morning again. And Auroville happens to just have taken birth in Southeast India, in Tamil Nadu, which is a very, very ancient nation of South India, the Dravidian nations of South India. And it just happened to be here. It could have been in a few other places. There was talk of it being in Hyderabad. And it happened to be here because Sri Aurobindo, who was the father of Auroville, and the mother was the mother Mira Alfasa, they happened to have their ashram. And he was a freedom fighter like Madiba, and he escaped to Pondicherry because it was French ruled. So it was a whole series of incredible circumstances. And this incredible link also with the story of Auroville, with the story of freedom from colonial rule. So Sri Aurobindo was a freedom fighter become yogi. And I would also argue that Madiba was a freedom fighter become yogi. I think he's equal yogi to Sri Aurobindo. And then it actually founded in 68, but the idea, this idea of coming together for human unity started in the 20s. In another one of my lectures, I go deep into the history, but it actually was inaugurated in 68. And during the inauguration, soil was taken in and put in the center of Auroville from 160 odd countries, all the nations of the world. And so this symbolic coming together was creating this foundation of this incredible platform. And it had the Sri Aurobindo, who was a freedom fighter and a sage, and the mother, who was Algerian Jew, who became his partner in this work and lived in Pondicherry with him. And both were following the path of human evolution and developing the divine life, basically life divine as they called it. And there was a very clear dream. So the overarching goal was human unity, but the dream was basically that it didn't belong to any one, it belongs to everyone. It's a very beautiful concept. And the idea was that it was a place to bring joy to the world, and youth should grow, something very strong that was mentioned earlier, close to the heart of everyone here. And it was for unending education, like lifelong education, beauty. Money is not the sovereign lord. So in this pyramidical world where money is kind of the sovereign lord, you can kind of buy your way into anything, but you cannot actually buy your way into Auroville. You can have as much money as you want. You can't just buy a house here, because it runs on time as the currency, really, and that time should be committed to the goal of Auroville, which is human unity. So as long as you're willing to give some of your time, you can come and be here. And so yeah, also higher expression of work. This is the idea of karma yoga, integral yoga, that was very much held there, and it's also there in the African and the Indian traditions. And to create a place of brotherhood, it has this charter. You can look it up. I won't go through the full charter, but basically it reiterates these points of unending education, and to have one foot in the past, to take the learnings of the past, and then to move into the future. So it is a very futuristic place. It's already in the future, really. And I believe, and this is something that Jay and I are talking about, I believe that Auroville it's a model of representing of where humanity is going. So if you want to learn about that, just come here. I've had 15 years, and there's people who've been here for almost 60 years. And it's a place of research. I think research is important. It keeps you open and finding ways to improve life for everyone. So this was the inauguration. There's very beautiful architecture. These are drone footages. And so it was a coming together of all nations. And recently, on our birthday, we took water from around the world. We've done earth, and we did water from around the world. That was brought to the Unity Pavilion. We've got a pavilion of unity. It had a plan, a town plan, and the plan was very, very sensible for what we wanted to achieve. So we've got these residential zones where I'm actually speaking to you from. I'm in a residential zone of Auroville. There's an industrial zone, but this is not industry as we know it as destructive industry. This is harmonious industry. So we've got spirulina farms, incense, chocolate factories, and so forth. And then there's a cultural zone where the educational activities take place. There's a Sufi whirling we were going to go to tonight on the full moon. That's happening there in the cultural zone. And then the international zone is pavilions of all nations of the world. So this is really all of the disasters of the past, the wars and the racism, the destructivity, is human disunity. So we're really embracing this idea of human unity as a concept. And this is what it looks like today, actually. If you go up on your roof, you will see this incredible forest. And it's basically started out like this little, you can see the inset on the image. That's what it was. So it was very metaphoric of transforming the earth and also transforming the humans on the earth. We basically took a barren plain. It's like going into the Karoo and taking denatured, land, and we brought back the forest. We went to the temples in South India. We studied what were the trees, because the temples used to have what's called sacred groves to preserve the flora and the fauna. And we got the seeds and we started planting. So it went from this to this. This is the aerial view of Auroville today. Millions of trees were planted, and it's ecology was obviously brought in from the beginning, because if you become more awake and self-aware, you're going to be aware of your environment. So we have incredible knowledge, and it's a learning center for wastewater flow forms, check dams. We've got incredible water table levels here that we've sort of repaired the water table that were depleted, and we use wind to pump, and we've made our own roads. This is our own technology with our own, the machine that actually makes the bricks is also made in Auroville. So there's not this dependence on external large corporations to construct. We construct our own roads. We have a road service, and they're made from the earth in Auroville rather than petrochemical inspired tar roads. Then we have cycle paths and walking paths throughout the forest. There's the UNESCO seat of earthen architecture. This is, I think you, Jay and a few others have been at Coimbatore at the Jana Linga. This was built by the architects of Auroville. The dome was built there. There's a whole story about that. And there's incredible emphasis on beauty. I think it's very important to bring that concept of beauty into a community. So it's a place of incredible architecture. A lot of the Indian architects come and study here. So this is a model of how architecture should be done right, because India's lost its connection with its ancient architectural traditions. So there's a revival here, and then also futuristic architecture. And this is our library made with rammed earth, just to give you an idea. This is a building just for one poem of Sri Aurobindo. He wrote an epic poem called Savitri. So we've got buildings that are dedicated to beautiful causes, and the architecture was trying to embody the poem. This is the aerial view of Savitri Bhavan. And it's also, all these are resources of the community. If you want to give a lecture here, you can use that hall. There's beautiful halls there. We've got a language lab for all the languages of the world. And this was one of our housing that is for youth, free housing for youth. It won an award recently for eco-architecture, for sustainable design. So this is the Unity Pavilion. It's this. I was telling Jay about it last night. There's these tables made from a single piece of wood around the world in places of peace. And if ever we have disputes, we sit around this table to resolve them. So we've got places for mediation and for dispute, and we've got a parallel alternative economy, gift economy, free economy. I won't go into too much detail because it's a very short time, but there's all sorts of commerce to generate, because communities should be self-sustaining, firstly with food, with clothing. The shirt I'm wearing now is an Auroville cotton project, and the indigo is from our Auroville indigo, and it's made by Upasana, one of our tailors here. So it's one of the few places where your basic needs, the house I'm in, most of the wood that we used is from the forest. They can be taken care of. We also have all kinds of outreach commerce that employs and upskills people from surrounding villages. So it's a huge outreach project. It's not just an internal sort of closed community. It's a community that its heart and its head and its arms are open and saying, we'll bring everyone up together in the true spirit of Ubuntu. So the real, I mean, I worked in many charities in South Africa, like Ikamva Labantu and with Mamalani, but I've never seen a project like this. But no one really knows, because when you come here, there's so much good happening, and it's just because we've created the field for this to happen, and we've created this platform. And I always dream of something like this in South Africa, and then maybe duplicating hundreds of these throughout South Africa, a kind of conscious healing community. And rather than waiting for the state to bring the answer, let's do this grassroots bottom-up solution, which we know will work. We don't have to wait for some authority to tell us it'll work. We've got fiber throughout the whole communication. So we've got 21st century communication, a huge emphasis on ecological and green practices. I'm going to arrange a visit to the recycling here with Jay tomorrow. We'll have a trash and shows. This is really there's a huge outreach. So it's not just about our environment, but we're trying to educate all of the environment. We've created games and so forth. And we've got cooperatives for the community. We've got our own safety body, so we don't rely on external security. We have our own safety to look after the safety of the community, and making conscious clothing. I'm really jumping. I'm going very quickly. Food and farms, tons of organic farms. So most of the food in my home is from our own fields. It's an incredible treasure. That's one of the greatest feelings in the world. And then we have communal eating. So single moms, you're working, you don't feel like cooking, but 1,200 people eat together every day. I think tomorrow we must go there, Jay, if you don't have plans for lunch, and whoever else is here on the call, please come. It's called the Solar Kitchen. We cook it on sunlight. It's one of the largest solar concentrators for cooking on. It's called the Solar Kitchen. This is the aerial view of the Solar Kitchen. So that's the solar. It's got a helioscope tracking the sun. And I'm going to jump a bit. Yeah, energy. We have an energy surplus. So I was just telling Jay about that. We actually, we've got wind turbines and we wheel the energy into the grid. So we, rather than have a shortage of energy, we actually have a surplus. So it allows us to get free energy for the whole community. Within reason, obviously up to a limit, because you don't want people to abuse that. And we've produced our own electric vehicles. We've actually got a project that's built electric vehicles, and then you charge it on your own energy from the community. And at any one point, there's 1 in 3 people you'll meet here are volunteers. And volunteers migrate. That's how you work your way into the community. And the volunteer could be for 1 day. Like Jay's coming here and he's giving so much of himself and his wisdom. That's also volunteership. So the gift economy is really the strength of Auroville. Everyone here is doing something incredible for the community. And incredible outreach to the surrounding villages that needed it. And then also there's ecological outreach, like in Chennai, we went and we rehabilitated an estuary for the Adyar River. So we actually went there and we did that. So once the community's out of the pioneer phase and you're in the strong phase, you can start to give a lot. And the real dream here is really to, I feel now we're almost 60 years, 54 years down the line. I think it's time for us to produce more Aurovilles around the world. The mother gave a talk to Kirit Joshi where he asked if we should do this around India, and she said, we have to do it. So I'm taking that as, let's do that in India, and then let's do it all around the world. Arts, this is the kindergarten from the sky. You can see it's in the forest where the kids learn lots of education. We've got 11 schools. Half of them are outreach schools. So they're schools, free schools for the villages around Auroville. And then the other half are for the community inside of Auroville. Huge amount of education. Everywhere is education. My neighbor's running a music school. There's archery and also reviving traditional educational arts. It's very important. India had this paradigm of 64 arts. And it's basically like a big university. We call it the University or University of Human Unity. And most importantly, all of you on the call should visit, come and be here, experience it. I think it's time for us to build communities. So this is just a very quick 10-minute. We had one of our volunteers do it's called Anatomy of an Eco-Village. I'll share this presentation with everyone in the chat. This is really, so everything you could think of is going on here. And I founded 6 years ago a project called CEDAR, Center of Eco-Village Development Research, where we basically blueprinting and researching what is the best model for communities. We're creating leaders to go out around the world. I've got a family coming from Tahiti now. We've got someone in Iowa with us at the moment. We're discussing with Jay. So the idea is really to take this brilliant idea. It works. We have a successful community. It didn't fail, and duplicate around the world, because these communities, they heal the earth and they heal humans and they heal societies. So thank you for letting me share a little bit about Auroville. And everyone come, you're all welcome.
Thanks